Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining today's Empower Hour topic session. I'm super excited to launch this new live format, and we're starting today, of course, with a conversation on feedback that fuels performance. And so here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why feedback is challenging and also why it is important. We'll talk about what effective feedback looks like, including examples of good or effective feedback, and also an example of ineffective feedback. And lastly, I am going to leave you with a 5-step framework on how you can effectively give feedback. The framework is rooted in organizational psychology, and you can start implementing it with your team and in your life today. These tips will also help, even if you're not leading a team. Effective communication and those challenging conversations are often the conversations that we most need to have, and that can show up in our personal life and or our professional life. And how the flow of the conversation is going to go today. I'm going to talk for 30 to 40 minutes. I'm going to really try to keep it at 30 minutes, but I do want to make sure that you come away with the actionable insights that I have prepared for you today. And then around the 30 or 40 minute mark, I will be opening it up to questions. So if you have any questions as I'm talking, definitely drop them into the comments, and then I'll circle back. And also, if you're watching the replay, you can leave your questions in the comments section there too, because I will revisit the video and any comments that we have. And also, as we're talking about feedback, I will be inviting your feedback. So towards the end of the conversation, I will drop a slide on in the video where it'll take you to a very quick survey, 4 questions. You'll have an opportunity to share more, but your feedback will help me improve and let me know the areas that you're seeing some value and maybe any suggestions that you have. So please stick around for that. And before we get started, for those of you who are new to me and or my content, I'll just share a little bit about myself. My name is Amy Miller. I'm founder of Troika Talent Acquisitions, Coaching, and Consulting. My background, initially started my career in medical sales before transitioning to industry recruiting. And I bring over a decade of industry recruiting experience, helping leaders in building their teams. I also have graduate training in industrial and organizational psychology. I have 2 nonfiction self-development books, Where's My Mustard and Ready, Set, Recruit. And I also offer corporate coaching for leaders and teams on effective communication, which we're talking about today, and also how they can inspire motivation across our teams, ultimately elevating performance. And I facilitate workshops for corporations and also colleges. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. And first, I want to start with why feedback is challenging. There can be fear associated with giving feedback and also with receiving feedback. We don't know how the feedback is going to be received on the other end. And what can happen if feedback is not given effectively is lack of connection. So effective feedback is building connection. It is building clarity, accountability, and that genuine connection versus where it can, if it's not effective, it can cause confusion, defensiveness, sometimes avoidance. We avoid having those challenging conversations. And then what you have is lack of connection. So what ideal effective feedback looks like is, 1, it is specific. It's specific and clear. And 2, it is given in real time. This is giving the individual an opportunity to succeed. And feedback is given with the intention of building up. So we've heard constructive criticism, constructive feedback, but if we think about that word constructive, well, it means to construct and in the turn, or to build, right? And then if we're talking about constructive feedback, constructive criticism, it should be given for the purpose of building up. So we want our feedback to build up the individual. And so what are some of the challenges and or pitfalls that we can tend to fall into with feedback? Well, we can sort of be in one of 2 camps, where our feedback that we're giving is too soft, or maybe it is too harsh. And what can happen if the feedback is too soft is that the message can get diluted or not be, it can go unreceived, where maybe the person doesn't even realize that they're being given feedback. And then, of course, if the feedback is a little too direct and a little too harsh, then the person on the receiving end can become defensive. They can maybe work to avoid future conversations. And I think it's important to, if feedback is something that's a challenge for you, you're not alone. If it's something that you have some fear around giving, around receiving, what if you can shift your perspective from that fear-based mindset into instead giving and receiving feedback as an opportunity to bring value, to provide value, to show someone that you see their value, right? Because otherwise, why would we invest the time if we don't think that the person can actually achieve what we're the goal that we're asking of them with the feedback that we're giving. And feedback is a challenge, as I was sharing, for a lot of us, but research shows that most people actually don't feel that the feedback that they're given at work helps improve how they do their job. And actually, in one study, found that only 26% of the participants felt like the feedback that they were given at work helped them improve their job. So you're not alone. But what can we do about it, and why does it matter? And also think about it's not just about what you say, what we say when we're giving feedback. It's also about the way that you are sharing it. If you believe in someone, then at work, then this can likely build up their self-efficacy, their belief in themselves. You may have heard of the Pygmalion effect, or that self-fulfilling prophecy. When we're surrounded by people that believe in us, then we tend to believe in ourselves more. That's why it's so important to choose your surroundings wisely, to make sure that you feel good in the company culture. Whereas if we are surrounded by people that don't believe in us, well, this can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I'm going to give just a sort of a funny, now it's funny, personal example. But for example, I love to cook. I love to prepare all my meals. They're healthy and delicious. So I'm confident in my cooking ability. Now, I have some family members that think I'm a phenomenal cook. And as a result, I feel when I'm cooking for them, I feel very confident in deciding on the menu, in buying the groceries, in preparing the meal. And it turns out it's effortless and turns out pretty perfectly every time. Taste wise, temperature wise, everybody's happy. But then I have some family members who think that I'm going to mess it up. And I'll feel this, I'll feel that, and it'll create anxiety. And I do mess it up. Maybe I'll burn myself in the kitchen. These are real experiences that I'm thinking of, or mess up the timing where some of the food's cold, some of the food is hot, so just something to keep in mind. And there's another theory in addition to the Pygmalion effect. Organizational psychology research talks about social comparison theory. And this talks about how people start to naturally evaluate themselves based on how others treat them. So just as important as what we're saying when we're giving feedback is the way that you say it. So again, effective feedback should be clear, it should be specific, and it should come from a caring place. And this is going to help reinforce that individual's capability. And organizational psychology research also talks about we need to feel a meaningful connection to the work, and we need to feel that we can accomplish the work, the goal. This fuels motivation. I'm sure you can think of examples both from personal and professional where you feel like you're unlikely to achieve the goal. So how motivated are you to actually try? So before we get into the how to give effective feedback and the framework and the examples, let's talk a little bit more about some of the challenges, some of the common pitfalls that of giving feedback ineffectively. One is catching people off guard. And so then what you want to do is instead you want to schedule the conversation. This way you're setting the person up for success to mentally prepare. Maybe they have some data points and some examples and some challenges, some information that they want to bring to the conversation. So you don't want to just call somebody out of the blue to give them feedback, or send an email or send a text. You want to let them know that the feedback is coming. And also, vagueness. We talked about, or I mentioned already, being specific and clear in the feedback. If we're vague and the individual doesn't have a data point, a specific example to go from, it's going to be more difficult to understand what the feedback is and what they're supposed to do with it. Another challenge, and this is a challenge just with humans in general, we often tend to assume, we tend to think that people know what it is we mean. If you have not read the book, The Four Agreements, I highly recommend reading the book. One of the agreements is don't make assumptions. And you can make so much, or avoid rather, the book says, so much unnecessary pain and frustration with this one simple rule. So you want to clarify the meaning of what you're saying, clarify the expectations. If the individual doesn't have a clear understanding of the goal, again, this is going to delay their progress, decrease motivation. Feedback sandwich, you may have heard of this, and this is when you go into delivering the feedback starting with something positive, so something good that the employee is doing, and then you sandwich in the real issue, the point of the conversation, and then you leave with something positive. So here's what you're doing well, here's a challenge that I want you to improve on, but remember, you're doing a great job here. And another option there that I would recommend, you could lead with something positive that they're doing well, but you don't necessarily have to. You can just go ahead and go straight to, hey, here's the challenge. Of course, after scheduling the conversation and some of the other 5-step frameworks, 5 steps of the framework that I'll get to in a moment. But you can just go straight to the challenge, and then without sugarcoating it, sort of by adding on something positive. The genuine positive that you'd be leading off of is inviting the employee into the conversation on what an action plan. I believe in you. Here's where I'm seeing the challenge. I'm sharing this with you because I know that you can do it. And this is going to build up the individual's confidence and efficacy, their belief in their ability to achieve. And then let's put together an action plan on how you can get there. So that's a positive, genuine way to give the feedback, even the challenging feedback. That's a way to leave on a positive note. And feedback, another challenge is when feedback is just top down rather than a feedback rich culture where people are comfortable giving feedback, receiving feedback, whether you're the leader of the organization, whether you're an individual contributor. And this is also a great way to foster creativity and innovation if people are comfortable sharing their ideas rather than fearing giving and receiving feedback. So those are some of the common challenges. And then, so what are, let's see, I think in what order I want to go here. Okay, before we get to the 5-step framework, I want to share a couple of examples. An example of catching the individual off guard. So typically, I like to stay very focused and honor my time blocks. And so it's rare that I will take an unscheduled call, but on occasion I will, depending on the person. And so this day I received an unscheduled call. I know the person's busy. I value and respect them. So I thought, okay, let me go ahead and take the call. If I can give them my full attention and focus, I will. But they called me out of the blue and wanted me to give them an update on where I was with a project. And so this created confusion because it's distracting. So I'm already focused on this task here. And so now I'm distracting my focus trying to understand the deliverable that you're asking for. And I didn't have time to prepare for that. And then I think the feedback would have come after that, would have come in that conversation as far as, okay, here's where you are, here's my feedback, here's my expectations. But the conversation didn't go very well. We didn't really get that far because it created confusion. I was distracted, I was confused, and I wasn't set up for success. So meaning I didn't have an opportunity to prepare to deliver. So you want to plan the feedback. And this can be something as simple as, I have some observations and some ideas on how we can improve the conversations with customers based on how that last meeting went. Do you have some time where I could share them with you? Would Tuesday at afternoon work okay for you? So you're planning the meeting, the conversation, and so the person knows that they're going to be receiving feedback, and then also they can take time to plan and to prepare on their end. Just like you wouldn't show up to a meeting unprepared. We don't want to our teammates, our individual contributing team members, to feel unprepared coming to a meeting as well. And then you want to get their buy-in. Okay, so this is the 5-step framework. So if you're taking notes, this is a good time to take notes. You want to plan the meeting, and then you also want to gain their buy-in. Would it be okay if I if I shared some things with you that I noticed that were areas that I think that we could improve on, whatever the situation is. And so if you're in sales, you're likely getting those yeses throughout the conversation. Well, you can do the same in your feedback conversation. So gain the individual's buy-in by letting them know that feedback is coming and asking them a simple question. And then they're going to, even if they're not consciously thinking about it, that they are buying in to the conversation, they're going to be likely more open to receive the feedback. And then we talked about feedback being specific. Well, you want to give a specific example. So give them a data point, a frame of reference. I'll give you an example. I was serving on my condo board, and the president of the condo board shared with me frustration. And the frustration was, so we have a beautiful courtyard with furniture out there, and the furniture wasn't put back properly. And so it was just kind of, I guess, a little bit messy looking maybe in the morning. And he pointed that out to me, and he said, this is something that bothers me. I want the staff to be proactive in putting the furniture back so that it looks nice, for example. And my question was, did you share that specific example? Now, sometimes going back to making assumptions, we can assume that, well, the individual should know that this is my expectation. And maybe so, but this is where we are. And we always want to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Maybe they forgot to do it that day. Maybe they had something more pressing that came up. But without that specific feedback, we're sort of, in a sense, denying that individual the opportunity to improve in that area. So you want to give a specific example. And so this way they understand whoever's receiving the feedback understands what the expectation is. And then they can choose a different action moving forward and be more likely to either minimize the behavior we want minimized or increase the behavior that we want elevated. And then step number 3, you want to share the impact, how this behavior is impacting, how it is affecting you, the individual that's receiving the feedback, how it's maybe affecting you, the manager, the leader who's giving the feedback, maybe how it's affecting customers and or the team. And then you want to, step number 5, invite dialogue. And this is where you turn the feedback giving into a two-way conversation. And so this way, again, you have the individual's buy-in. They're more likely to be motivated. And so it's about, because they're part of the conversation, they've got a specific example, you respected and valued their time by scheduling the feedback so they know what's coming. They have an opportunity to prepare their talking points. So it's about setting your expectations, sharing what you observed, and then the consequences, which could be good or they could be, not so good. What's the impact? Why does this matter? Why is this important? I think that kids have the right idea. We innately are very curious, since babies and little kids, we want to know why. And so we're more motivated if we understand why. I know that I am, and I imagine that the same is true for you. And I want to share an example. So we shared an example of not so effective feedback by not scheduling a time and catching me. This example was about me off guard, but I want to share an example of effective feedback. So this was years back, and the leader I knew believed in me and my abilities, and he was just a very caring person in general, great leader. And he called me up. So in this case, I don't believe that the feedback was scheduled, but it was okay, just in the way that he presented it. I think that he just gave me a call, but it was in real time. So there was an incident that had happened that I was a part of and it negatively impacted maybe him, maybe our team and brand and the client. So this was important that he give me this feedback rather than just let the behavior continue, and then I'm not given an opportunity to work to improve that behavior. So anyhow, he called me up, and he approached the conversation with a very caring tone, so to build up. And I already knew that he believed in me and in my abilities, and he shared his feedback in such a way that it was almost lighthearted, and it made me laugh at myself because I didn't really realize I should have. I think now I definitely would. This was years back, and I worked on my self and social awareness quite a bit. So anyhow, I didn't realize that how the effect, the impact that how I was showing up was having. So anyhow, he shared the feedback with me and the impact, and he did it in such a way where I was able to laugh at myself a little bit. And so the feedback was specific. He gave me a specific example. He shared, he approached it, the conversation in such a way to build up, to let me know that I was cared about. So it was a positive conversation, a positive feedback exchange. Now, so that was a good example, but I think looking back, where that example could have improved if we took that example a little bit further, what was missing was he didn't dig a little bit deeper to my recollection to ask me, maybe what do you think? Here's where I would like to see you, and I know that you can do it. What do you think? Do you see this challenge as an area that is holding you back? And if so, is it something that you would like to work to overcome? So inviting me into the conversation to better understand my motivators. This is how we could have taken it a step further. And then also we could have even taken it another step further by implementing an action plan. Okay, so let's talk about together. So then this way the employees really bought in. They're motivated because they're part of the conversation, part of the action plan. Let's figure out some action steps together that you can start implementing to help you overcome this challenge. And then also, we could have taken it even a step further if he were to ask me, when you're showing up this way, actually, I don't mean to be vague. I'll just share a little bit of specifics. So I was highly stressed at this point in my career, and I was doing a good job, but I was highly stressed in my job. But I was also having some interpersonal struggles that I was dealing with too. So of course, this is going to impact how we are showing up. Anytime you are stressed, you may not be presenting yourself, you may not be your best. Your best is going to be different from day to day, depending on what's going on. So he didn't ask me that. I don't think, like, he could have asked, so whenever you show up this way, how are you feeling? What's happening? What's going on there that causes you to show up this way? So, and maybe he could have asked, are there some tools or resources that you feel like are lacking here? And so how can I better support you so that you feel more comfortable and confident and less frustrated in how you show up? So I was showing up frustrated, and we can sometimes present as frustrated to another person in our demeanor when we are stressed or when we are confused. If there's lack of clarity, misunderstanding, then this can create some frustration. I'm sure you can think about personal and professional experiences where you didn't show up as your best. You maybe acted a little frustrated toward the other person because you didn't understand something. So maybe there was another resource that I needed. Maybe there was some additional clarity around the deliverables that I needed. And looking back, each of those elements were there. There was confusion. There was lack of clarity around the goal. And then I had my personal stuff going on. And so this is how you can really involve the other person in the feedback conversation. And this shows that you care. You're taking the time to invest in them, letting them know, basically, I believe in you. Because if we didn't believe that the individual was able to overcome the challenge to achieve the goal, then why would we take our time and invest it in the conversation? All right, so that's an example of a positive feedback example, and then also how we can take it further. All right, so we talked about the framework, and let's talk about some other specifics and on how you can talk about the framework for giving feedback effectively. Just make sure that I didn't miss anything there. And let's talk about receiving feedback well. This can be a challenge, of course. And first, we're all showing up at the table to the experience with our own unique perspectives that are shaped by our own unique past experiences. So we may not always fully understand, I think often we don't, what the other person means. And so we may not receive it well, or we might assume that they mean something else. So I think of it as like a key success habit is to pause before reacting. If we don't take something the right way, something doesn't feel good, it's causing stressful kind of conversation, pause before reacting. And then you can also ask a clarifying question. May I have an example? And without the example, that data point, then the individual doesn't have a frame of reference to really understand the desired behavior or the undesirable behavior. And then as a leader, you can ask for feedback from your team, and this will help to establish that feedback rich culture, the sharing of ideas, and help everyone to continue striving to improve. Another thing that you can do is you can thank the person for their honesty, even if they didn't share the feedback in maybe the best way. And because it's just about improving, and you just want to try to give the feedback as best as you can, and it may not be perfect. And so even if somebody gives you feedback that doesn't feel very good, it's maybe not done in the best way, thank the person for their honesty. This may help them to feel more comfortable in giving the feedback next time, and alleviate some of the anxiety around giving feedback. And then they will probably do a better job, just like me in the kitchen around, if somebody believes in me, then if the anxiety goes away, I'm going to perform better the next time, whatever the situation. So as a leader, if you can model effectively receiving feedback, then your team will likely model your behavior. So we talked about the 5-step framework. We talked about a couple of examples, and I think that is okay. Good. I finished way under 40 minutes, so that's good. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I wanted you to come away with these takeaways. And I think that effective feedback is a very important part of communication, and communication is needed for connection, understanding, and at work, of course, in our personal lives too. We want to be believed in. We want to feel confident in our ability to achieve. And if I don't think I touched enough on giving feedback in real time. I mentioned it a little bit, but I want to circle back to that. Of course, we have our end of quarter reviews, we have our end of year reviews, but if we wait until that time to give the feedback, so this is not in real time, well, we're denying the person an opportunity to improve, to work on the behavior. So you want to make sure that you're giving that individual an opportunity to improve. So feedback should be specific, it should build up, and it should be given in real time. And then you've got the 5-step framework. So hopefully that was helpful, and the concepts will help you and give and receive feedback more effectively, and create more cohesive, collaborative relationship across your team. So that is it for the conversation part, or the content part rather, of the conversation today. So I'm going to just check in the comments to see if we have any questions. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to pop this slide into the screen here. And so if you can take just a moment, whether you're live or watching the replay, this will really help me. I value your feedback. I'm always working to improve. I know we all are. There's no such thing as perfection, so keep that in mind too. We just want to always be improving. There's always more to go. So whatever you found useful, maybe if there was something that's missing, but the QR code, if you scan it, will take you to a 4-question survey where you can share your thoughts. And of course, you'll have the opportunity to share more if you would like. And then if you're watching the replay, a reminder to go ahead and drop your any questions that you have into the comment section there. And then I'm going to also drop a couple links in the comment section in case you are interested, curious about connecting on coaching or a customizable workshop for your institution or your organization. You can reach me there. So just going to grab those here. And then if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat here. And I'm going to be doing weekly Empower Hours. I'm deciding on the day. It's either going to be Tuesday at 5 like today, or Wednesdays at 5. So I will update you on that. I don't know if it'll let me. Oh, here's how I do it. Let's see. All right, so there's a couple links there. If they don't work in the chat, they're on the event posting as well. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any questions right now. Again, I will come back and revisit the video and any questions that you have. So thank you so much for watching, whether you're watching the replay or whether you're live. And I hope that was helpful. And I'll see you next time.